Major League Baseball season is ready to start, and I've got some season predictions. Let's talk about them. And well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watsu-K99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. If you're brand new, welcome aboard. Please like and subscribe. And if you're returning, please like so we can get those videos out there. I appreciate all your support. So earlier on Wednesday, I was doing my New York Mets season preview video. I made 10 predictions about the season, and at the very end of the video, I snuck in a quick World Series prediction. I put a little bit of thought into it, but I hadn't thought about the whole season. But, after I put that video up, I had a thought. I said to myself, why don't I just make a video breaking down the entire season? Let's talk about all 30 teams, where I think they're going to finish. Let's make some awards predictions and talk about the entire playoffs, not just the World Series. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to break down all 30 teams, break down where they're going to finish. I mean, I'm not going to go into all 30 teams. We're not going to spend all day doing it, but we will talk about where everybody will finish. I'm going to make my predictions for MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year, and finally talk about every single playoff series, what I predict happening. So let's go. First of all, let's talk about the American League standings. I see, it's very easy sometimes to stay with the same old teams, especially in baseball. It seems like it takes a long time for a team to fall and a long time for a team to rise a lot. But I'm going to make a pretty bold prediction here that I don't see too many people making. I predict that in the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays will unseat the New York Yankees and become the American League Eastern Division champions. I really like the Blue Jays this season. I love their lineup, especially the top half of it. It is absolutely dominant. And alekmanoah is really starting to emerge as a legitimate ace candidate. He's had, we're going to talk about him a little bit later. I'm going to say my Manoah thoughts. But you've got Jordan Romano now with Edwin Diaz at one of the 2 or 3 best closers in baseball as well. They've really added to their starting rotation as well. They've got a pretty deep 1 through 6, actually. I mean, when Hyun-Jung Ryu is your 6th starter, that is pretty good. That is pretty good. So I predict Toronto finishes first overall. The Yankees finish second, but I think they will get one of the wild card spots. I'm also going to predict Tampa Bay in 3rd, Boston in 4th, Baltimore in 5th. I got to say with Baltimore in particular, I'm pretty disappointed they didn't really add to their team, especially in free agency. They lost Trey Mancini, they traded Jorge Lopez, but they really didn't do anything to replace those players. They're really counting on, the kids doing the job, but I really felt if they had invested a little bit, they could have built off that 76-win season from 2022, but not to be. I guess I'm saying that also because living in Norfolk, Virginia, I'm pretty close to where the Norfolk Tides play, and so I kind of know those prospects a little bit better than I would other teams. On to the AL Central, I think Cleveland repeats. I don't think anybody has really improved enough to rise to their level. I'll pick Minnesota in 2nd. At least they did bring back Carlos Correa. The White Sox, to me, they got to prove that they're not just perpetual underachievers. I'm picking the White Sox 3rd. The Tigers 4th, and the Royals 5th. And then in the AL West, I'm going to make another surprise prediction. I think the Seattle Mariners are going to win the AL West. I'm a little worried about Houston losing Justin Verlander. Jose Altuve is going to miss half the season. I think they're going to lose a little bit. I think they're getting to the point where they know they can turn it on when they need to. I am a little bit worried about their pitching past Framber Valdez and Christian Javier. So we're going to see what happens, but I think Seattle is starting to ascend. I think Houston's going to get off to a very slow start. Then they'll turn it on late, and they'll do enough to get a wild card spot. So you got Houston 2nd. I've got the Angels, the Anaheim Angels. I don't refer to them as Los Angeles. I got the Angels finishing 3rd. I think this is a make-or-break season for them. I don't think they trade Shoheiohtani during the season. I think they're going to go for one big run. I think they're going to actually make their way into the playoffs. I think the Angels get the last wild card spot. And then Texas 4, they've done a great job adding to the rotation. I just don't like the lineup. I don't like the defense, and I don't like their bullpen before their closer. And Oakland, the less said about them, the better. I think they're probably going to be the worst team in all of baseball, if not Washington. It'll probably be Oakland. All right, so again, to recap my playoff teams, I've got Toronto 1, Seattle 2, Cleveland 3, and then the Yankees 4, Houston 5, and Anaheim 6. That's my AL predictions. We'll come back to the playoffs in a little bit, but on to the National League. In the National League East, you know it hurts my heart to do this. There are few teams in sports I have as much disdain for as I do the Atlanta Braves, but to me they have the deepest lineup in that division, especially with Rhys Hoskins going down for Philadelphia. And boy, once Raisel Iglesias comes back, I think they now have the best closer in that division as well. Maybe the best in the National League, as a matter of fact. They probably have now, I think, maybe the second or third best bullpen really in the National League at this point. Good defense. We'll see what their starting pitching does. That's the one thing. I'm still not sold on Spencer Strider as this ace, which everybody's making him out to be. You know, will Mike Soroka be able to make a comeback? Can Charlie Morton do his job? Kyle Wright's going to start the season on the injured list. That's the one concern I have, is that Braves rotation. So let's see what they wind up doing. That's the one caveat. Second place, I've got the Phillies finishing just ahead of the Mets, maybe by a game or so, but I do expect that to be very, very competitive. Philadelphia has definitely added to what they already have. I think Trey Turner is going to be an absolute fantastic addition. I don't know anybody who doesn't think that. But Taijuan Walker could be a good addition to the starting rotation, and they've started to build up that bullpen. They've lost Corey Knebel. They still have Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jose Alvarado. They added Gregory Soto and Craig Kimbrell as well. So I think that they have a little bit of a deeper bullpen than they have in past years. I guess the biggest question is some of these players who are taking over everyday position spots, the Bryson Stotts, the Brandon Marshes, are they ready to step up and contribute? And also, how long will Bryce Harper be out? He's had Tommy John surgery. He has not been put on the 60-day DL just yet, but you have to wonder how long he's going to be gone. But the addition of Turner, to me, is going to make that team go. So I've got Philly finishing in second. I've got the Mets in third. We've talked in angst about the Mets at this point. Miami 4 and Washington 5. I think the one thing I would say about Miami, I think they actually have some decent pieces, especially in that starting rotation. I think you're going to see some guys settle in behind Sandy Alcantara, behind Jesus Luzardo. I think you're going to see some kids start to call up and get called up, and by the end of the year, people are not going to want to be playing Miami because they'll be playing spoiler for a couple of playoff teams. Washington, oof. Anyway, good luck to Dominic Smith. In the NL Central, I got the St. Louis Cardinals taking that division. I really like their balance. I think they've got a good mix of veteran, and even though without Yadier Molina, I think Wilson Contreras is an excellent addition. You have Jordan Walker, you've got Lars Nootbaar, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan. I think they're just the best all-around team in that division as of right now. I do think the Chicago Cubs will have a pretty good season. They can spend quite a bit in free agency. I think they finished second. Don't like the starting rotation, but they have put a little bit of resources into that lineup. And I'm a little bit down on Milwaukee this year. I think they're going to finish third. Even though they have a good rotation, I just don't like this lineup. I've never really liked this lineup. When Christian Yelich, his back is just never going to be the same in my eyes. I mean, I'm not sold on the Rowdy Telez's and the Willie Adameses and guys like that. I think Milwaukee takes a step back and they finish third. I've got Pittsburgh fourth and Cincinnati fifth. Now, in the NL West, it's very hard to make a case nowadays that the Los Angeles Dodgers are clearly the best team in that division, especially losing Turner. They still have Betts. They still have Freeman. They're calling up some players, but Walker Buehler not expected to pitch this season. Their bullpen has been taking some hits as of late. Julio Urias is really their frontline starting pitcher, and I like him, but I don't like him as an ace necessarily. And Justin Turner's gone as well. I think his leadership leaves a big void in that clubhouse. I think LA is going to finish second and settle behind San Diego, who is absolutely loaded. Bob Melvin at manager, Josh Hader in the bullpen. They added Seth Lugo from the Mets as well. And when you have Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, Jake Cronenworth, on and on we can go. You're loaded. I think San Diego is locked and loaded to have the best season in franchise history. Then I've got San Francisco third, I've got Arizona fourth, and Colorado fifth. So in the NL, in seeding order, I've got San Diego 1, Atlanta 2, St. Louis 3, LA 4, Philadelphia 5, and the Mets 6. So those are your 12 playoff teams. But before we get to the playoffs, let's talk a little bit about season-ending awards. So I'm going to talk first about the American League. For MVP, my pick is a pretty obvious one, Shoheiohtani. He won it 2 years in a row. He finished second last year to Aaron Judge. Considering what he brings as both a hitter and a pitcher, it is very hard to envision him not winning this award, especially in a contract year when he has that much more motivation to deliver. I think this is going to be a year where he takes his game up just one more notch, and I think we're going to get a very special year from Ohtani. My Cy Young winner is Alekmanoah, who I alluded to briefly, from the Toronto Blue Jays. Last year, Manoah actually finished third in the Cy Young voting, a 2.24 ERA, 16-7 record, 180 strikeouts. He had, now there's this weird stat, ERA plus, one of those sabermetric stats, and his ERA plus was 174, meaning his pitching performances were 74% better than the average major league, and he's only 25 years old. I think he is going to assert himself as the ace of the Toronto staff, so give me Alekmanoah for AL Cy Young. AL Rookie of the Year, Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles. Very well-rounded prospect. He's one of the few prospects in baseball you could say is the best pure hitter and power hitter. I've watched him play a little bit in Norfolk. He's the type of player everybody wants to have on their team. He's just going to be a very, very useful piece. Complete 5-2 player, runs very well, has great defense. There's nothing he can't do great. I think Masataka Yoshida from the Red Sox and Anthony Volpe from the Yankees will give him a good fight, but Henderson, his all-around game will be enough. Now in the National League, maybe this one is sentimental, but as the MVP, I feel like I should take Trey Turner, but I'm going to go with Pete Alonso. I think Alonso is going to have his best slugging year, maybe not in terms of the number of home runs, but in terms of his all-around hitting. I think his plate discipline is going to take another step up. I think his average is going to go up a little bit into around 270, 275 or so. I still expect about 40 to 45 home runs. I think he is going to really lead this team because one of my things is I just have a weird feeling Francisco Lindor could miss some time, and Alonso is going to be in a state where he has to carry this team on his back, and I think he's going to be able to do it. For the Cy Young, I'm going to go with Corbinburnes of the Milwaukee Brewers. Over the last 3 years, he has a 2.62 ERA, a 33% strikeout rate. His OPS allowed is just 558. That's ridiculous. And among qualified starters, those totals rank first, tied with Max Scherzer. And in 2022, he pitched 200 innings for the first time in his career, had a 2.94 ERA, a .97 WHIP, and NL-leading 243 strikeouts. So I'm going to go with Burnes. My Rookie of the Year is Corbincarroll from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Had an 830 OPS last year in just 115 plate appearances. He's only 21 years old. His power is really good, but he can run and play defense with the best of any outfielder in baseball right now. He's polished already. He's only going to get better. I don't see any way he doesn't make the All-Star team later this season. So those are my award predictions. Now let's get to the playoffs. Let's get to the main event. So in the American League playoffs, in the wild card round, I've got Cleveland beating Anaheim, and I've got Houston once again vanquishing the New York Yankees. It's going to be a little weird seeing Houston and the Yankees in the wild card round, but I think that's what's going to happen, and Houston moves on. And I think that could lead to the end of Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman in the Bronx at the end of the season. Then in the ALDS, it'll be Houston against Toronto. Oh man, this has been this has been my toughest series to figure out, but I think Toronto might be 1 year away from putting it all together. I think they're close, but not there just yet. I think maybe a little bit more depth on the pitching staff, or a little bit more leadership in the clubhouse, a little more veteran experience, and that'll do it. But I'm going to pick Houston to beat them in a 7-game series. I've got Seattle over Cleveland in what will feel like a very ho-hum series unless you root for one of those two teams. And I've got Houston beating Seattle in the ALCS to once again advance to the World Series. Now on to the National League. So I predict that the Mets, the lowest wild card team, will face the Cardinals, the lowest division winning team, and the Mets will knock off the Cardinals and advance to the NLCS, along with the LA Dodgers, who I think will beat the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Dodgers will do enough to get in, and they will beat Philly playing at home. I think that home field advantage is going to be enough for them. Then in the NLDS, I've got San Diego eliminating the Mets for the 2nd straight year. And from there, I see the Atlanta Braves advancing to the NLCS again, defeating the LA Dodgers, setting up an NLCS between the San Diego Padres and the Atlanta Braves. And I say the San Diego Padres are going to do it, and they're going to knock off Atlanta to advance to the World Series. I believe it would be their 3rd in franchise history, 1984 and 1998, as I recall. And I think your World Series champions, like I said earlier today, will be the San Diego Padres as they knock the Houston Astros off their throne and claim a World Series for the only one of San Diego's remaining Major League franchises in the 4 major sports. So those are my predictions for the Major League Baseball season. Who's your prediction to win the World Series? Do you have any picks for MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year? Any division winners that you agree with me on, disagree with me on? Talk to me. I want to see your comments. Put them right down there below. Thanks everybody again for watching New York Sports Wicker Media. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.